Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's session, part 3 of Befrienders' approach to mental health problems. In this session, we'll be learning about signs and symptoms and how to support people who are suffering from mental health issues other than depression and anxiety. Quite a number of WhatsAppers talk about self harm. On some people who call us also talk about self harm. It is not a mental health problem. It is faulty coping mechanism. Here you can see the self-harm cycle when there are strong negative emotions and the person is not able to deal with them and does not know how to cope with those strong emotions, then they tend to self-harm as a way of coping. So somebody might feel like rejected or angry or not having control. So, in such cases, the strong emotions make the person feel like sad or angry or depressed. Then, sometimes, as a way to feel something, they tend to cut themselves or burn themselves, hit themselves against a wall, and somehow harm themselves, which makes them feel something. Like earlier, they might be feeling numb with too strong emotions sometimes, or no emotions at all. Then this is a way of feeling something, and it's a way of having that faulty sense of control over their lives. When there is no control in whatsoever, then this is a way that they try to tell themselves that I still have control over my body. So after that, temporarily those emotions like subside, or they feel something, whereas earlier there was numbness. Now they feel something, the pain is there, so that relieves the tension that they might be having. And again, once that act is over, the negative emotions like guilt and helplessness, they come back, and again it's like a cycle that keeps going on and on and on. They do want to stop hurting themselves, but when the emotions come up, they don't know how to deal with them, so again they start hurting themselves. So the self-harm cycle is like going in circles until it is treated with professional help. So there is a misconception that all those self-harm do so to manipulate others, but it is not true. It is, as I said, a way of feeling something when there is numbness, and sometimes people feel guilty that they have done something wrong and they deserve to be punished. And similarly, they hate themselves and then also they harm themselves. And actually, it's a way of communicating to others, like perhaps to make them feel sorry for them, to take notice of them, to be cared, to be supported. So that is where people believe that, like, they're trying to manipulate others, but it's a cry for help, actually. And as we mentioned earlier, a faulty sense of having that need for control. Sometimes life is not going your way, and you have to follow, especially like when we are talking about, let us say, young people or some women. They don't have any control in their lives. They have to depend on their parents, and they have to study what they ask them to study, and even though they don't like it, so they feel that they are like stifled and don't have any control over their lives. So this is one way of asserting that, like, I have control over my body. you know. And how can we support them? Empathetic listening, without telling them, no, it is wrong, you should not hurt yourself, no, you should do other things. All this. So instead, listen to them. Listening to them, how it makes them feel after they do it or while they are doing it, and what happens before they start on this. Asking when and how it began. Generally, it would be an incident that has deeply affected them, or some ongoing concern to which they have not found a solution yet. So, and the triggers. there are always triggers, generally late at night when they're thinking about their breakup, and then thinking about their ex can trigger some people, or sometimes when they're thinking about their situation, the stress that they are going through, then they tend to do that. So trying to find out the triggers can be helpful for us, and we can talk to them about how the strength of the emotions are there. Mild thought about something is different versus before it escalates into something serious and very strong emotions starting to come up. Before that itself, they should start addressing this thoughts, because once the emotions are too strong, then they won't be in a position to stop themselves from harming themselves. Instead, when the negative thoughts themselves start coming up, then they should try the earlier techniques that we have talked about, like the cognitive techniques, like journaling. Immediately start writing about what you feel about that incident or that person, and how you want to behave instead. All those things, by distracting themselves, by trying to do something more productive, can be helpful before the emotions become too strong. Hmm? So when they talk about the triggers are come up, one of the ways that they can deal with it is calling befrienders also. So when we are talking about people trying to manipulate, majority of those who self-harm go to great lengths to hide their wounds by covering with long clothes. Like even if it is summer and it's hot, people tend to wear full sleeve t-shirts and try to cover themselves. Okay, so they do not want others to know about their self-harm behavior. Okay. And they can contact us whenever they have those strong emotions coming up, even before they start coming up. When they start having the negative emotions itself, they can talk to us.
Do you have all the facts when it comes to eating disorders? See if you think these statements are true or false. Number 1. Eating disorders are a lifestyle choice, and mostly about vanity. That's false. They're a serious mental illness, and they can be life-threatening. 2. Dieting is a normal part of life. That's false too. It's good to make healthy food choices, but extreme dieting can cause major health issues, including eating disorders. How about this one? Eating disorders are a cry for attention. False. People often go to great lengths to hide eating disorders, or may not even realise there's a problem. Number 4. Parenting is to blame for eating disorders. Yep, that's false too. There's no evidence that certain parenting styles cause eating disorders. And in fact, families and friends play a vital role in care, support, and recovery. Last one. Eating disorders can affect anyone. Actually, that one's true. While some groups are more likely to develop an eating disorder, they can affect anyone of any age, gender, or cultural background. So how did you do? Eating disorders can be overcome with the right treatment and support. But the first step is having the right information. Sharing this video is a great start. And there's a lot more info at nedc.com.au. Do you have all the facts when it comes to eating disorders? See if you think these statements are true or false. Number 1. Eating disorders are a lifestyle choice, and mostly about vanity. That's false. They're a serious mental illness, and they can be life-threatening. 2. dieting is a normal part of life. That's false too. It's good to make healthy food choices, but extreme dieting can cause major health issues, including eating disorders. How about this one? Eating disorders are a cry for attention. False. People often go to great lengths to hide eating disorders, or may not even realise there's a problem. Number 4. Parenting is to blame for eating disorders. Yep, that's false too. There's no evidence that certain parenting styles cause eating disorders. And in fact, families and friends play a vital role in care, support, and recovery. Last one. Eating disorders can affect anyone. Actually, that one's true. While some groups are more likely to develop an eating disorder, they can affect anyone of any age, gender, or cultural background. So how did you do? Eating disorders can be overcome with the right treatment and support. But the first step is having the right information. Sharing this video is a great start. And there's a lot more info at nedc.com.au.
So how many did you get right? Okay. So the thing is, eating disorders are not about food. It is more about underlying issues. They might be having depression and they do not have any control over their lives, and maybe peer pressure is something, media influence is there, and some people are are perfectionists, so they want everything to be perfectly saying with what is going on, and sometimes they might be having underlying guilt issues, all these things, and anxiety is also one of the reasons why people try to restrict. So there are so many underlying reasons, and it is expressed as eating disorders like anorexia and bulimia. In anorexia, the amount of calorie intake is restricted, and they take very minimal amount of calories, which can affect their physical health as well as mental health. Even though they are very thin in their mind, they look fat for themselves. So it requires hospitalization and long-term care to treat anorexia, and it can cause death if untreated. And when it comes to bulimia, it is about eating a lot and then purging it, like vomiting, to maintain the weight. So that is another type of eating disorder. And Princess Diana was known to be affected by bulimia. And binge eating is normally they eat on a regular basis, they eat standard amount of food, but when they're distressed or anxious, or when they're stressed out, they eat a lot of amount of food in one go, one whole bag of chips or one whole pack of bread or something like that. So all these things come under eating disorders. And let us see what we can do, what some of the causes, and uh, how we can support them. So as mentioned earlier, anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, body dysmorphic disorder. This is where some people believe that there is something wrong with their body and excessively worry about that part of their body. My stomach is too big, or my back is too heavy, things like that. So they don't like themselves basically, even though everyone else says that it is not a major issue, they believe so. And they might be having low self-esteem as a result of their body dysmorphic disorder, or as a result of something else. So this is something they feel that they have control over, perfectionism, stress, and sometimes it can be hormonal, biological also, and social pressure. And some of them, when we are talking about biological, some medications may cause anorexia type of feelings, like they do not feel like eating food. So discussing that with the doctor early on can be helpful in changing the medication. So they eat too little or too much, or they excessively exercise. and in case of bulimia, they induce vomiting. So how can we support them? Again, listen with empathy without telling them you should eat your food, otherwise you would fall sick. Of course they know that, but listening to them, like what is going on in their life. So do not judge or try to convince, but we can try to explore what is the underlying emotion. On top, it looks like they want to maintain their weight and they are just dieting, but underlying it could be anxiety issues, control issues, other type of problems that they're struggling with. So try to find out the underlying emotions. And next comes addictions. We do get calls from people struggling with various addictions. Yeah. Generally, when we say addiction, we refer to substance abuse. But there are a number of behavioral addictions that affect the lives of sufferers. Addiction is, can be classified into behavioral and substance abuse. So, under behavioral come gambling, pornography, self-harm, exercise, eating, internet, shopping, etc. So any of these, if they are done in excess, where the person does not feel control over how much of it they do. For example, we're talking about exercise, then exercise is good. If someone is keeping themselves fit by exercising on a regular basis, that is good. But excessive exercising, when they don't exercise for a day or not specified amount of time, then feeling extremely uncomfortable, and if it's affecting their moods and their day-to-day life, and if they're spending too much time on it, then it can be called as an addiction. Same goes with eating, internet, shopping, because these are the things that we have to do on a daily basis, but if it goes beyond a certain time, and if by not performing any of these, if they feel extremely uncomfortable and the moods are affected, then probably it is an addiction. Because any of them, like internet addiction, has been on the rise for the past few years, and nowadays it's not just young people as once it used to be. Nowadays, middle-aged adults, even senior citizens also are addicted to internet, watching YouTube videos, etc., like for long periods of time, and it is affecting their social lives and relationships also. When it goes to that point, then it may be an addiction. As long as anything is within limits, then it is okay. And gambling also. Sometimes people gamble all their belongings, and then they become bankrupt, and then have difficulties, like financial difficulties, and like owe money to alongs, all these things. Then that is an addiction that definitely needs to be treated. And when it comes to substance abuse, this is what we are more aware of, like illegal drugs and alcohol or tobacco, including e-cigarettes, and some prescription medicine also for pain medication used um, like in excess, makes one person dependent on them, and that can cause serious health issues, and maybe in excess dose, overdose, that it can make them seriously ill or even cause death. So addiction is not a simple lack of will to control the urge. It also has a kind of cycle, as you can see. Basically, there are unmet needs like love or social connection, etc. And that unmet need makes them crave something. For example, alcohol. They want to drink so that they can forget about the uncomfortable feelings. And after drinking, then or maybe sometimes there can be a trigger. For example, someone who has stopped taking drugs pass by the place where they used to take drugs, or meet someone who is still taking the drugs. So then that it triggers then they start the addictive behavior of either taking the drug or smoking or gambling, pornography, whatever. The need is there. The first thing is there is an unmet need, and craving comes in after that. And if there is a trigger, then automatically they perform the addictive behavior. It becomes too much to control the urge, and they temporarily get a relief, but afterwards they feel regret. They know what they have done is not what they wanted to do, but they were unable to control themselves. And after the regret, again, the unmet needs come up sometime soon, and they start doing it over and over and over again, irrespective of their desire to stop doing it, irrespective of their knowledge of how it is affecting their lives. They feel unable to control. So talking to them about the unmet needs and what they are can be helpful. When we talk about addictions, what are the common causes and symptoms? Anxiety can be something that causes people to get addicted to some behavior or substance. And depression, because they don't get the right treatment, right support for these conditions like anxiety, depression, and stress. So people tend to use substances, they tend to abuse substances, or they do engage in behaviors like gambling, shopping, all these things. And sometimes when they are bored, seeking some recreation, they tend to do this. And past trauma also can cause someone to get addicted to something. For example, if there was a major incident or maybe a loss for a close relative or family member or loved one, then people tend to take alcohol so that they can feel temporary relief. So it's basically a faulty way of coping. And same applies to any other types of addictions, behavioral or substance. Even like self-harm also is an example of addiction, when people repeatedly do it even though they don't want to do it. Any behavior that is beyond our control and which is repeated over and over again, and which is affecting their daily life, social lives, work life, or education, any of these things can be classified as an addiction. So peer pressure also, with peer pressure, people tend to get addicted to any of these substances or social behavioral issues. Yeah. How can we support them? Empathize with their struggle. It's not easy. They also want to stop behaving that way because it probably is already affecting them very badly in a number of ways. So they are struggling but unable to stop the addictive behavior. And most importantly, explore their unmet needs. They themselves might not be aware of these things sometimes, but trying to find out what are the unmet needs and what are the triggers. So once the unmet need is there, like as I said, support from family members, or love, or isolation, all these things are might be driving them towards the addictive behavior. If the loss has not been properly dealt with, then grief is not properly processed, then they turn to addictions. Or, like I said, anxiety, depression, or stress, if they treated with the professional help, then they may not need to resort to these addictive behaviors or substances. So trying to find out what is the need is the first step. And the next would be trying to understand the triggers. Triggers, by triggers, I mean when someone is used to taking drugs, let us say in one place or with this group of people, and the next time, even though they don't have the need to take it, automatically being there in that place or with those people brings up those emotions, and then that can act as a trigger so that they engage themselves in the addictive behavior again. So trying to find out those triggers. For some people, it is like late night loneliness. So when there is no one around there and they feel that loneliness, that automatically brings up the urge to engage in the activity of addiction, whatever it is. So trying to understand those triggers and finding ways, exploring ways that they can avoid those triggers, or finding alternative ways of attending to the unmet needs whenever the triggers come up, can be helpful. So do not judge whatever kind of addiction, whether it is pornography or whether it is gambling. Do not judge them, because they are also trying to overcome the addiction. They have every intention to overcome the addiction, but they are not able to do so. And even if they want to overcome the addiction, relapses are quite common, which makes them feel guilty, you know, and makes them feel powerless, helpless, and hopeless for future. And the last thing that we don't want to do is be overly enthusiastic about their success. Normally, when someone tells you that, like, they have been free of the addiction for a number of days, or like, months, or whatever it is, when you are overly enthusiastic and then praise them, like, oh, you have done really well, and this is it, and you are going to be successful in life, etc., etc. When we do that, we don't leave much space for failure, which might make them feel that they have let us down when the actual relapse happens. Relapses are very, very common with addictions. So by being overly enthusiastic, we, in a way, are not allowing them to fail, or not leaving any space for relapse. So be careful about being enthusiastic about their success. Yes, we can gently encourage them, but not overly enthusiastic. Okay. And there are various personality disorders like antisocial personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, dependent personality disorder, paranoid personality disorder. And we are not going to learn about all of them. It would become too much. As it is, this is a long uh, video, and a lot of topics have been covered in the past few sessions, part one and part two. But now we tend to get calls from those who are diagnosed with borderline personality disorder somewhat commonly. So it might be helpful to be aware of the symptoms to befriend them effectively. So when we look at borderline personality disorder, you see these are the common things that they tend to experience, which are, like, they're disturbed, self-image is one, and mood swings are expected to be there. And most telling thing about borderline personality disorder is like unstable relationships, because they have extreme fear of abandonment, even though the person is not willing to be with these, or even if they are happily married, they have this extreme fear of abandonment. What if they leave me? So they keep on looking for signs that the person is not going to leave them. And even if uh, they notice a little sign that the other person is not uh, like as committed as they expect them to be, they get extremely disturbed, and there can be self-harm involved, and they might display risky behaviors, as in drinking too much, or engaging in risky sexual behaviors, or um, they have this threats, suicides, they try to tell the people that they are going to die if they leave them. And sometimes they do act on them also. It's not always empty threats. About like 17% of people with borderline personality disorder might actually complete the suicide, and they have like impulsive behaviors, suddenly making the decisions, suddenly deciding to leave a job, or leave a person. They idolize someone, and they can equally hate them, so it happens very quickly. So these are all the signs and symptoms of borderline personality disorder. How can we support them? Do not minimize their fears of abandonment, because they actually want that reassurance that this person is the person they love is never going to leave them. So it can feel like too much for us, but do not judge them, do not minimize their fears of abandonment. And then comes exploring the effects of borderline personality in their lives. What is the effect? How is it affecting them, their relationship, their work life, all these things, and exploring the ways of coping if appropriate. And because it is a difficult disorder, all personality disorders are difficult in general because there is no specific medication for them. It's only symptomatic treatment. If they feel depressed, then depression medication is given. If they feel anxious, anxiety medication is given. But there is no cure per se for borderline personality disorder. So just exploring ways of coping is a way that we can support them. Most importantly, listen to them. Talking about their strong feelings can help them feel slightly better. So just listening non-judgmentally is one thing that we can do to help them. That's all we can do. The next topic is psychosis. Perhaps people who are suffering from psychosis or a psychotic episode are the ones commonly referred to as crazy, since they lose touch with reality during a psychotic episode. They hear, see, or feel things that are not there. They also tend to have delusions, that's like faulty beliefs, and thought process also is like disorganized. And beliefs like, such as everyone is trying to poison them, or the TV anchor is speaking to them to give a message, etc. But please do not confuse the sufferers of psychosis with psychopaths. Psychosis is the experience of symptoms that can often be treated with medication treatment. Psychopath is someone who lacks empathy and guilt, among other symptoms, and is associated with antisocial personality disorder. So the term that we commonly use as like, someone who is a psycho is not someone who is experiencing psychosis. Okay. So what is psychosis? Delusions, as we mentioned earlier, about thought, faulty thought processes. Hallucinations are physical things, as in like, seeing, hearing, feeling, smelling, all these things. So feeling things that are not there, hearing sounds that are not there, those are hallucinations. What are the causes for this? Schizophrenia is the number one cause that comes to mind when someone is experiencing psychosis. It's a serious mental health problem for which there is medication available and that can lower the psychosis issues. And bipolar disorder is another when it is severe. Uh, Sufferers of bipolar disorder might have psychosis. Substance abuse is a major reason why people feel things, especially the hallucinations, all these things, when they are not there. And excessive stress, sometimes not having enough sleep, but being under extremely high levels of stress can cause temporary psychosis. And some medications that are used for Parkinson's, for example, have the chemical dopamine. It's a neurotransmitter, and that actually helps them move. Also, that can cause some hallucinations, and people who have psychosis, depending on what they hear, might become very agitated, and in some rare cases can also become violent. Especially that is true for substance abusers, because even though people say mental health issues can make people violent, generally that is not true. Most of the time it is substance abusers who tend to be violent and cause issues. What can we do to support them? Listen with empathy, explore how it is affecting them, and you can try to give information if they are willing to get that. But please do not interrupt when they're talking about whatever it is that they are going through. Do not try to use logic to contradict what they are saying. For example, if they are saying that yesterday they watched TV, and on the TV the news anchor was saying that, let us say the person's name is Paul. So today there has been an alert for Paul. So all TV channels are showing only Paul's photo, and the moment he is caught, he'll be killed or something like that. So you have watched TV yesterday, and there was no news about Paul at all. So, but do not try to contradict what they are saying. So instead, explore how it is affecting them, which would be asking them, so yesterday after you watched the news, how did it feel for you? How do you feel now? What would you like to do about that? Just talk to them. And if possible, try to calm them down by being gentle when you are talking, so that they also won't be so agitated. Okay? Generally, we get calls from carers and not those with autism. But it would be helpful to have some understanding about autism, because we keep hearing quite a lot about it these days. And there are some myths and facts are here, as you can see. The very first one is like autism used to be rare, now it is common. And some people believe that autism is caused by so and so. There are extreme anti-vaxxers who believe that vaccination causes autism. There is no proof for that, but they still keep believing it and deprive their children of vaccination, which can be life-saving. So the simple fact is that there is better understanding now and availability of diagnostic services, and that is the reason why we hear more cases of autism. And people believe that autistic people do not have emotions. That is not true, but they have difficulty understanding or sensing subtle emotions and expressing them. And some people believe that, they're mentally retarded, or it's a illness, mental illness. It is just a developmental disorder. Neurologically, the brain works differently. That is why they have difficulty with communication, mainly with communication, and some uh, repetitive actions. So that's a developmental problem. And another belief is that only boys have autism and girls cannot have it. That is also not true. Yes, boys do get diagnosed more, but it does not mean that girls do not have autism. And some people have this belief that all autistic people are excellent painters, or they can draw very well, or they are very good at mathematics. They can master a subject like geniuses. And otherwise, some people believe that they are simply stupid, but neither is true. There are all uh, types of abilities in someone with autistic disorder. So it is also a myth. So now you have some facts. You might be in a better position to talk to people who might want to discuss about autism, mainly parents. So how to support them is what we can try to see. So generally speaking, carers talk to us about the fatigue, carers fatigue. It's not an easy thing to take care of a child with autism. And when we are talking about autism, it's a spectrum. Not everyone has the same amount of or the intensity of symptoms. Some have more, some have less. Some can integrate into society very well with some support and training, but others might need more care. So generally, parents who take care of their children find it difficult and they have worries, tensions, like thinking about what will happen to my child when I'm no longer there. So listen to their uh, worries, without judgment. Sometimes people say, like, it's your child, you should take care of them, who else will be there? If And that makes them feel like, they cannot talk about how tiring it is for them to take care of the child. But saying that out loud can make them feel guilty. So being non-judgmental, uh, we can give them space to talk about what is really going on in their mind and reflect uh, whatever they're saying. Let them talk about it and reflect back, validate their feelings of fatigue. Again, telling them that it is natural to feel the fatigue, like not being able to take a holiday, not being able to go out with them, and losing out on the social life and recreation and fun. All that is not easy. So just letting them know that you understand, well, their feelings and the reasons why they feel the way they feel, and explore and encourage self-care. Once in a while is you can explore with them whether they can take a break by giving the responsibility of the child to somebody else and caring for themselves, so that they can be refreshed and again be able to take care of their child. Just trying to find out ways. So basically all we do is support them by listening non-judgmentally. Okay. We may not get many calls from people talking about ADHD as they might be unaware of it, but they might have other mental health issues because of it. As you can see here, those with ADHD or ADD might have other conditions that can affect their day-to-day life, and they might have more incidents of anxiety or depression, or more commonly behavioral or conduct problems. What happens is that because of their uh, inability to concentrate and their fidgety nature, and also because of the impulsive nature, they can get into trouble at school, and teachers try to discipline them without realizing that they are actually having difficulty because of the ADD or ADHD. So they are labeled as someone who is disobedient and a difficult child, you know, and so that can make it difficult for them to perform well at school because they're not able to focus and learn. At the same time, uh, treated as someone who is willingly being lazy or disruptive in the class. And the same goes with work also. Bosses generally tend to think that their employees are lazy if they are struggling with ADD or ADHD. You can see in this comic why a parent or a teacher might struggle to support or realize that a student or a child is having difficulty with ADD or ADHD. When someone is asked to focus, it looks as if the child is really paying attention, but they're distracted. So asking questions like, are your eyelashes real? It's like naturally, parents or teachers tend to get annoyed, thinking that they are willingly and knowingly behaving that way. So that makes it difficult for the child to get the support they need. Again, with befrienders approach, as long as we keep these basic guidelines in mind, we'll be able to effectively attend to callers with mental health issues. No diagnosis, no judgment, validate and normalize. And these are some of the resources available in Malaysia. D-Home is a NGO in Penang, which is trying to raise awareness about common mental health problems like depression, bipolar, schizophrenia. And they have a family link program also that's conducted on a regular basis, which you can attend to gain more understanding about depression in detail and bipolar, or also schizophrenia. They invite doctors, psychiatrists to give these talks, and they support family members of people suffering from mental health issues. So please do take advantage of their programs and attend them, so that you can uh, have more information and knowledge about these common mental health problems. And other things are like, online you can check for mindakami.org and miasa and mmha and relate.com, all these things. And we have given you some notes also, which you can have all the resources available there for information and self-help also. So when someone is willing to, then you can provide the self-help links to them, so that they can support themselves if they are not able to go to a government hospital, or cannot afford private treatment. Because along with medication, psychotherapy is very important. And generally speaking, a lot of people do not have access to good quality psychotherapy. So the next best thing we can suggest to them is self-help. So being aware of the self-help resources would be very good, so that we can support them. And here you can see how someone can get help if they have a mental health issue. The pathways are very clear here. So if they are not aggressive or suicidal, then they can go to these places and get a referral letter and then get an appointment. But if it's an emergency, then they can go to an emergency department. Or if the person is like, aggressive, and they uh, like, need immediate treatment, of very psychotic, then the family members can get the support from police and then get to emergency department. Okay, so please keep this handy, and so that you can quickly refer to it whenever you need to. And sometimes the family members ask us to convince the person suffering from mental health problems to get medical help. In such cases, we suggest that they encourage the person to contact us directly, so that we can explore the options. Because sometimes people don't know, and they ask us like, I give the phone number of my so and so loved one, can you please call them and tell them to go to hospital? Unfortunately, we cannot do that, but we encourage them to suggest to the person to call us, so that we can talk to them. Okay. And where else can they seek support? There is a governmental route and there is non-governmental route. At government places, it's much cheaper. They don't have to pay much money. It might take time, but they can get support uh, for a very nominal fee. Whereas with the private clinics, it costs money, like, as you can see here. And there are some NGOs also supporting mental health issues, and you can see the phone numbers and all the other details here. And some sufferers do not seek help at GH or AK because they are worried that their records might be shared with their educational institute or employers. Please reassure them that the doctors do not share medical records unless ordered by court. Unless there is a dispute that comes up and they have to provide the records, their medical records are kept private and confidential, so they can freely go and get help. And NGOs can be an option for those who are worried about money, as private hospitals charge more and not everyone can afford that. Then sometimes they can use the facilities at the non-governmental organizations. Okay. So in summary, with mental health problems, be willing to listen non-judgmentally. Now that you know people have mental health problems and it is a common thing, and they're struggling, and they call us because they need their support, which they might not get otherwise from their family or friends. Okay, try to understand as much as you can. Explore with open-ended and close-ended questions, clarifying, paraphrasing. Use all the befriending skills that you have learned in managing calls, and reflect using slow fast. Yeah, try to explore the underlying reason and what the effects of it are. Okay, try to assess at what stage they are in and respond accordingly. stage 1, stage 2 to up to stage 5. Yes. So respect their decision. Whatever they want to do, it's their choice, their life. So if they don't want to use medication, then they don't want to use medication. We are not going to try to seriously convince them to use medication. We can only explore the options and suggest the ways and gently ask the questions, and after that it's up to them, and provide information if they want. Okay, always ask, would you like me to provide some information? If they say yes, then do. No, don't be overly positive for reasons we have discussed earlier, because that leaves no room for relapse. Assure them that they can reach out to us for emotional support in their journey towards recovery. Okay, that's how we broadly support anyone with mental health issues. So I hope we have achieved the learning outcomes we have set out to achieve. For further information, please check out the resources provided in the notes. Thank you very much from the bottom of my heart for watching these training session videos, all of them, even though they are very lengthy and there is a lot of information, and most importantly, willing to help people with mental health issues, trying to understand what they are going through and how to support them, and wanting to do your bit to help people with mental health issues. Thank you very much once again.